Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Danita Cummins, and I am super excited to kick off the first of a 3-part series where we talk about faith and freedom. I have had the pleasure of digging into some candid conversations with women veterans from all over the country as we talk about their passion for business, coaching, and consulting. And we get to dive into how they have taken their military experience and their faith and fused it together in this place where they really feel like they are making a positive difference, serving and working and leading where they're called in the community. And so this first conversation is with my good friend, LaToshia Ngu. She and I have been friends for almost a decade. We've served in ministry together. I think I sent her notes of encouragement when she was downrange deployed with the Army years and years ago. So I've had the pleasure of watching her grow as a mom and as a wife and as a business leader. So I'm super excited to share our conversation with you about her faith, about her discovery process that she went through herself, and her passion for helping businesses to get clarity in branding and marketing so that they can share their amazing story with the world. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Let's get started. Doing things alone is entirely overrated. We all need a community to thrive. And that's why I'm part of an online community of writers and speakers, podcasters, and entrepreneurs called Creatives. And I love it. In the years since I joined this community, I've launched new ideas, and I finally executed the dreams that sat on the shelf for years. Seriously. And I was able to do this because of the outstanding group of mentors, exceptional training, and encouraging mastermind groups with my new friends who did and continue to give me invaluable feedback. Oh, and not to mention all the fun, because we have had lots and lots of fun. Have you ever said, I want to write a book? Or do you want to use your voice for the exciting world of podcasting? If so, Called Creatives is your best resource for up-to-the-minute industry training, expert advice, live coaching, and peer support like no other. Best-selling authors and speakers Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle lead this community with a no-competition mission, and it shows. So join my friends and I in the Called Creative community. Head to my show notes, danitacummins.com/podcast, and click the link to get all the details to join. I promise you won't regret it. I look forward to seeing you in the community and watching you grow. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Danita Cummins, and today I'm joined by my good friend and fellow veteran, LaToshia Ngu. I don't know, how long have we known each other? Maybe a decade.
Oh my goodness, now. It has been that long.
It's been a long time,
yes.
Huh? Yeah. We've served together in a variety of different roles, but she today is a business coach and a conference speaker and a course creator, and she's here today just helping me with my first session of a 3-part series that we're doing about faith and freedom, where I've invited some amazing women who are veterans and women of faith and serving as entrepreneurs in the marketplace to come and share their stories about the intersection of those 3 things. So I hope we have a great conversation today. But thank you for joining me on the show, friend. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad that we got to do this. So do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself? And then we'll dive into our conversation.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Like Danita said, I am a veteran. I served in the United States Army for 8 years. I'm a mom of 3 beautiful little girls, ages 6, 4, and 2. And I'm also a military spouse. So those are 3 very, very interesting dynamics together. I started my business because I really, truly just wanted to help small businesses with branding. I saw a common thread that most small businesses really didn't understand who they are. They really didn't understand how to explain themselves. They didn't have any consistency. And as I started asking questions, I realized that they never spent the time on brand development. And so I really just stepped out and was like, you know what? This is a space that I want to fill. I want to do it, even though I was terrified because I did not feel like I was qualified. But my husband supported me like through the entire process and was like, hey, you can really do this. Go ahead, step out and do your own business. And so now I help small businesses, solopreneurs, and entrepreneurs build the brand that they always dreamed of, build that consistency, get that message clarity that they want. And that's what I'm doing right now. I also speak at conferences and teach courses, and I do have a course.
Oh, that's so good. So we go back to your military days. What did you do in the military? What did you do in the Army?
Medical logistics specialist.
Medical logistics specialist. So, which has nothing to do with marketing and branding.
It does not.
Right?
Absolutely not.
So how did you, as we were talking, before we got started, we were talking about identity and how we wear our like warrior identity, being in the military, serving in the military. It's such a huge piece of us. So can you talk a little bit about that transition? So you transitioned from being in the military and then, you're still military spouse and a mom. But how did that connection, I guess, from like being in military, medical logistics to doing marketing, like where did that come from?
Well, I went to Fayetteville State University and I actually got my bachelor's degree in marketing. And so I was doing that while I was still active duty. And so I did get my bachelor's degree doing marketing. So that's where I kind of got introduced to marketing and things like that. But as I crossed over into the sphere of what I do now, which is branding, that kind of came because I remember in the military, we would always have like these big reactive campaigns. So say, for example, suicide is a big thing in the military. And so I always wondered why they weren't asking the right questions around it. And it's always like reactive, like, why did the soldier do it and things like that. And I said, well, maybe we should be asking, how do we mitigate stress as opposed to what caused the soldier to do that? Because me and both know the day-to-day life of a soldier is extremely stressful. And you have those stressors on top of your personal life. And so you have all these things going on. And unfortunately, some people, the only way that they see out is that. And so I kept asking myself, what are the deeper issues within business? And at first, I didn't understand that was branding. I didn't know that's what it was until I started doing some research and really digging in to figure out who is this company? What is their mission? What are their visions? What are their values? And by asking those questions, I was able to connect the two and really saying, oh, this is what the underlying cause is. And that's how I connected my questions in the service with what I do now.
Yeah, that's so good. I feel like maybe that's something that you grow into as a leader when you get to that place where you start really asking those why questions, vision, mission, and values. I do a lot of mentoring with transitioning veterans through like Veterati and stuff. And that's a common question or common, I guess, challenge that I offer to them is like, go out to the marketplace and look at these companies and really dig into the vision, mission, values of that company. Like really ask those hard questions because that's what's going to keep you engaged in like long-term kind of healthy culture, those kinds of things, right? Like it's not necessarily the products or services that a company offers that really keeps a person or people there like really passionate about the mission, really giving all of themselves, every day. It's much more about who they are, like when no one's watching.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see how that makes a lot of sense. So now you work with small businesses and you help them develop their brand identity and all those things. You want to talk a little bit about that, like what that looks like for you in your day-to-day business life?
Yes. So what that looks like for me with my day-to-day business life, the first thing that I tell businesses when I go in, I'm like, hey, look, your logo, that is not your brand. That is not who you are. It's a visual representation of something that you already created. Your brand, it's what's internal. That's your brand. So it's who you are that's on the inside, your personality, your mission, your vision, your core values. That stuff like that's your brand, your identity. And then it just happens that your logo and your colors and everything flow from who you are as a company. And so once I get them to understand that, I'm like, okay, let's sit down. Do you have a mission statement? Because believe it or not, many small businesses don't have mission statements. They don't have any core values in place. They're just like, hey, I'm doing business and this is what it is. And I'm like, okay, so where are we going? I understand that you're doing business, but what's the purpose of your business? Why are you doing business? Other than making a profit. And that's the thing that I like to dig deep in and try to help businesses understand, it's like, okay, other than making a profit, why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And so when I work with businesses, I start there. Before we build anything, I want to know, why do you do what you do? Because we can only build everything based on the answer to that question.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I think that's so good. I do that a lot with my coaching and consulting business too, like working with small business owners or even medium-sized business owners. We get back to those why statements in the very beginning, because it is. And that goes to strategy, it's all connected, right? So if you want me to help you develop a strategic plan, then we're going to have to sit down first and kind of understand the why you're doing what you're doing. And then everything needs to tie back to that vision, mission, value. So you can quantify and measure and OKRs, but if you don't know like the why you're here, the value you're trying to bring to the marketplace, those things, and making sure that you're very intentional about the resources, your time and your, people and the services and products you offer, then that's where I feel like that message starts to fall apart. Right. And so when a consumer looks at you, they're like, this doesn't make sense. This company says they're this, but I see this. And then this, where does that fit? And I see that a lot in my role as well. Just helping people unwrap all those things and put them together. Yeah. I can see that. So we talked a little bit about, so you have your military experience, your mom, your military spouse, you're a woman of faith, and you've kind of transitioned through these different seasons as we were talking before we started recording. So it sounds like, and if you want to talk about that process, I think that would be valuable, but like you walking through that process for yourself, right? Like you basically took yourself through that same process when you were asking questions about your business and how you got here. So do you want to share a little bit about that journey and kind of what that looked like for you?
Yes, most definitely. So I remember when I first wanted to start my business, me and you actually had a discussion and I said, hey, Danita, I want to start a business and I'm not really sure. And I was so scared and deep into like feeling like I was not worthy. I did not have the knowledge to help people. And I think that really just that showed in everything that I did in the business. You can tell it was like I was fumbling around trying to figure out, okay, is this it? Is this it? Is this it?
Yeah.
And so my services at that time they were very wide, and they were from organizational development to all these things that I can do, but I'm not passionate about it. And so I had to have that real conversation with myself. What are you passionate about? Why are you doing this? What is the whole purpose of you starting this business? And it was like, because I want to help solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small businesses with less than 10 employees build their brand, build a thriving and successful brand. And it's like, okay, now you start there, you build your business around this. And so me, myself, had to take myself through my own process to make sure that it works and then be like, okay, now I'm good. And then once I did that, I had to deal with, you are enough. You can do this. You have the knowledge. You're fine. You're okay. Just step out and do it. And so once I started doing that, I started getting confirmation from outside sources like, no, like you're really good at what you do. Like it's no issue. But yeah, so for all the business owners who are struggling with, I may not be enough. I'm not worthy. I'm telling you right now, you are enough. You are worthy. You know more than you think and you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. The greatest advice I ever got from one of my coaches and mentors was about like coaching someone is just helping them do, one more thing. Like the one thing that you give that to somebody else. It doesn't have to be, not to take away from anyone's certifications or training, none of those things. But there is an opportunity, I think, for all of us as leaders in the world to like help one other person move forward. Like we've stepped over here. So I know these 3 things. I can give that to someone else and help them step forward. And I feel like that's been my journey with learning how to like lean into hard things like nonprofit and the pregnancy center. I got to the place where I felt like the Lord would say to me when I didn't have it all figured out and I couldn't spreadsheet map it to 20 different things. I just would feel like the Lord would say to me, like, what do you have in your hand today, Danita? Well, I have these 3 things, Lord. I have these 3 people, or I have these $3, or I have, these 3 things. And then the Lord would say, then use what I've given you and go. And I feel like that's a faith journey that we go on, because like as you're talking, I'm thinking about that. Like the Lord gave you provision, the Lord gave you these things, but it was you had to have the faith and the courage to kind of step out and say, okay, Lord, I'm going to lean forward into this. I don't exactly know what the future is, but I know these three things.
Yes.
So, yeah. And do you feel like that was hard for you as a woman of faith and stepping into the business world and this, it seems to be a paradigm kind of paradox shift, but did you find that was hard for you as you started out on that journey?
It was, because at first I couldn't figure out where everything fit. I'm like, okay, so how do I balance being a mom, being a wife, being a business owner, and also being in the church? Like, how do I balance all this stuff in a way that it works? But I had to realize that with my kids, that's part of ministering for God's body. I'm pouring into my kids with my
for
business.
Sure.
I'm pouring
Yes.
into my business what God has put in me. As a spouse, I'm pouring into my husband what God has put in me. So either way, it's all connected. But it did take me a long time to get there. And it was not an overnight process.
Yeah. And did you struggle with that, like the anxiety or guilt of it? I think that a lot with women, and we take our military hat off and just put to the side because, I was talking to another lady recently, like women are like 1% of the military, right? Or less than 1% of the military populace. And then you take the Christian women, I don't know what that percentage is, but I feel like it's a little bit smaller version, so you've got a really small subset of us, these women who are like military and then Christian and then trying to live as, especially if you're a military spouse too, that shot group gets smaller.
Yes.
But did you feel like that was really a struggle? I know we talked about this before, but like that struggle of that like place of identity and trying to like, how much do I give to my kids versus how much do I give to my business versus how much do I support my husband and the local church? Like, how do you navigate that, I think, every day? Because we live in this weird mindset where we think we're supposed to have what's the word that we call it? I forget. It's like not do it all, but work-life balance, right? We say work-life balance all the time. But is that really a thing for you? Or what does that look like for you?
That's not really a thing for me. I really just had to figure out how to manage my time and what it looks like for me. And with the kids being out of school, that looks a lot different than what it looks like when they're in school. And so for me, it's like, okay, from this time to this time, I'm dedicating to my business. From this time to this time, hey, kids, we're all in here. Hubby, let's schedule some date nights. Let's put some things on the calendar for us to do. And that's the only way that I can manage it. But at first, I did have some guilt because I was like, I'm working on my business. I feel like I'm not spending enough time with everyone. This really has me away. And even though I'm home, I'm not really home. And then let's not throw in social media and the foolishness that's on there and you're like, but they're doing it, but they're not really doing it. They're just showing you the best parts of their life on social media, of course. And I just had to take a step back and be like, look, you are doing the best that you can do and sit down, plan it out, because that's how your brain works. Your brain works on calendars. So just sit down, plan it out, get it done. And this is what works best for you. And that's okay. Do what works for you.
Yeah, I think that's so good because I realize like I have my kids are bigger now, so we're in the getting to the end season where we have one more in high school and everybody else is kind of adulting.
Oh, so crazy to believe that.
It is. Some are really adulting, like they're legit adulting. Some of them are working, they're still adulting. But I know that was really hard for me in different seasons, like even with my military career or when I worked for the government, when I was a contractor and hubby was gone, there was like this balance of like serving in the church and then still trying to go to work and then still trying to do spelling words and then still trying to make sure we had like 3 vegetables a week or something crazy, And it was a really big struggle for me for a long time. And I think that you made a great point where you're like, you guys, you and your husband and your family, you guys have come together and made a decision that works for you, right? Like that works best for you. And I think that the seasons of when you are mom and you're working, head down, you're always a mom, but like when kids are in school and you've got early bedtimes and you've got spelling words and you've got the things, then your business can adjust, right, to those things, and you can kind of do that. I think that's a great point for everyone. Lesson is just that life's not linear.
No.
Right? It's not just one big flat. Everything doesn't get an equal bucket all the time.
It does not.
Yeah. And I think when we look at it from that way, I think that makes it's foolish, for lack of a better word, or not realistic expectations for our life.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And you, like you said, you have to know what buckets need to be filled. And then one thing that I always tell myself, self-care is important. So even though I have all these things going on, at some point, even whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day, I don't care what it looks like. I have to find that time for self-care to reset and refill my own bucket before I can pour more into these other buckets.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I think the same thing. I'm being much more intentional about self-care now than I probably have ever been in my life. And like you and I have talked about before on the phone and just conversations of that, like just getting to that place of what does healing really look like in practical application? What does the true self from a biblical perspective?
Yes.
I'm on this journey right now trying to figure out what is my true self. And I think going back to the identity, we wear all these coats or jackets in our life. And then at certain points in our life, we take them off. And then, it's a struggle, I think, sometimes to get through the next season and not live with regret or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's so good. What do you do for that then? What's your tactical self-care strategy or regiment or whatever? What does that look like for you?
It depends on the day, but what I enjoy most is walking. And so it's been nasty outside the past couple of days, so I haven't been able to really go on my walks like I used to. So usually I just like lay in the bed and read a book. So that helps too. But most of the time I go on a walk, and I find that walking does wonders for me because it gives me time to process everything, because I'm a mental processor. I have to sit and think every last detail out. And so it gives me time to process, clear my mind, relax, so that when I do come back to whether it's work or home or whatever, I'm like recharged. I'm like, okay, I'm good. Let's get back to it. What's next?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you plan that stuff? You were just talking about your calendar and planning. And do you have, I'm sure you have goals for your business and, like all those things, but do you put like a self-care? Do you have like a goal? This year I want to do these certain things for myself or whatever. Is that incorporated into your kind of like planning too? Or is it more like you said, just the little moments of every day?
The little moments of every day, but I always tell myself, I'm like at least 3 days a week for me, because like I said, I need to walk. So for me, it's like at least 3 days a week, you need to go out for a walk. Go out for a walk, clear your head, clear your mind. And so I know no matter what that looks like on the calendar, I know I need to take those 3 days, and I'll stop and be like, did I take a walk today? Okay, I need to, all this has to shut down. I need to stop. It can get done. That's one thing I learned from the military. It can wait till tomorrow. Like it does not have to get done right now. And so if I'm feeling everything bottled up and I'm like, okay, I think it's time to take a break. Let me close my laptop, get out the house, go for my walk, and then come back to it. Whatever needs to get done will get done, but I need to take this time for myself first.
Yeah, I think that's good. I do too. Like we definitely in the military learn how to like triage everything, right? Because that's what you do all day long. You're like prioritizing everything. You're like, is someone shooting at us? No. Is this going to explode? No. And then you're like, go down the list, is someone going to die? No. Okay, well then it'll be fine. We can do it tomorrow, It's extreme, but it's the reality. So then when you go into like your life, you shift gears to your mom business life, but you still have that mindset, I think.
Yes.
I do that with my kids too, even today. I'm like, you don't have to do that today. That's fine. We can do that tomorrow. I do that. I just triage every day.
Yes.
What are the 3 things I have to get done today? This. Everything else can wait till tomorrow. Because, I also, though, on the opposite side of that, don't know how to turn myself off sometimes. So because there's 20 things to do, I think we do that in the military too. We just learn how to like pull our bootstraps up and just keep going. And, it's almost like that one more mile. You just one more mile, you can one more mile. But that's not healthy either. So there's definitely a balance. Yeah. Between learning that, like you said, self-care, listening to your true self, and then taking rest for yourself and knowing that rest is okay.
Yes.
I think a friend of mine asked me recently, she was like, in the military, do we value strength? And I said, oh, definitely. Right. And that goes back, I think, to the identity part too. Like, we're strong. Warriors are supposed to be strong all the
and
time.
resilient. That's all. That's one thing they always say. You're strong and you're resilient. Like, learn how to bounce back from whatever hits you. And so,
yes, so good. Yeah. And then you talk about like the suicide and the mental health issues and the things. Yeah, I think there's a connection there for sure. So switching gears a little bit to faith, because you and I talked about that and this intersection, which is really kind of what I had, just listening to you and other women veterans who are in the marketplace and leading from a place of faith and trying to do that. How do you think your faith has shaped your role as a business owner and a wife and mother? And those lenses, I'm sure, are different. But how do you think faith has shaped that for you?
For me, mostly it's coming from a stance of trying to figure out how I can help other people first, and that it's not about me. And what does it look like for God's light to shine through me in every situation, especially when it comes to business? Because when you deal with business, say, for example, lately, I don't know what God has pivoted me in, but I've been meeting a tremendous amount of people in the naturopathic space. So like psychics and mediums and things like that.
Really?
So yes, really. So I'm like, okay, God, this is very interesting, because when I come in contact with these people, the first thing they said is, what drew me to you is your spirit shines like a really bright light.
Oh,
and so I'm
very
like,
cool.
I was like, okay, guys, so what are you're obviously using me in this business space to help these people, to draw them into you. Okay, so what does this look like? And so now I'm like navigating that space, like with my faith, and okay, God, how does it look like to minister to people who you're reaching out to, but showing them who you are in a way where you get all the glory for this. And I'm just the vessel. I want you to get all the glory. And so that's one aspect of it.
That's so good.
Yeah. And another aspect that I also had to deal with is understanding source versus resource. And that God is my source and he sends resources to sustain me. And that one was a really hard lesson that I had to work through. And it was just like, wow, God, like this is really whipping me right now. But I had to get to the point where it's like, okay, all this stuff is good, but these are all just resources. And it comes from the source. And I need to understand that I need to put the source first, and he will provide the resources to sustain me.
Okay. I was going to ask you, like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean? It was hard because I'm thinking that makes perfect sense. But why did that? Yeah. Okay. And was that just because you had put the like physical things that you could see in front of you? And was that like a pride thing, or was that like a scarcity thing? What was that made you really kind of struggle to see? I say that. I know that you know that because I know you. So I know that you know that. But what was that struggle for you in that space?
I think it had to do a lot with me feeling like I wasn't enough in the space. Yeah. So trying to prove to myself that I was enough, I pushed off that God is the reason that I'm enough. Yeah. And so I feel like that's why he had to bring me through that process of saying, hey, wake up, child. Remember that I am your source.
Oh, I'm like, that song's played in my head as you said that, wake up, child. Everybody else doesn't know that we sang on the worship team together. That's the difference. No. Yeah. We didn't tell everybody at the beginning of the show that we actually were kind of like a musical duo group with a handful of other amazing worship leaders.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's funny. As you're talking, I'm like, I know I have that song in my head. I think that's so important. And I think it goes back to like faith. From my perspective, faith is like a muscle. And it grows the more we use it. It's just like any other muscle, right? If you don't, it's like your brain. If you don't, use it, mindset, it atrophies, neuroplasticity or whatever that is, that concept where your brain continues to grow and move. But faith is very much the same thing. And I think it's really cool to sit and watch you exercise the faith muscles that you're, exercising in this new season of your life with being a business coach, still serving the military community as a military spouse, being a mom, and trying to still intentionally make sure you see God in action in all things.
Yes.
And I think that's where this paradox or paradigm of serve in full-time ministry or serve in the business world, and then we have this corporate kind of don't bring this to there. But I see what you're trying to do, and others are trying to really like infuse those things together and say, no, this is all of me coming to the world, all of God through all of me and all my broken pieces and all my amazing pieces. Like you're saying, I'm enough because he created me, because he's the source.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm bringing that infusion of that spirit and that energy into the world in the best way that I know how to do that every day.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's so good and hard and messy. So I applaud you for being brave enough to do that, because I feel like most people, all people, right, from a gospel perspective, all people have the ability, like, for God to live all through them, right? And to bring that into the world. Like, that's what we're called to do.
Yes.
To go to the world and love our neighbors ourselves. But we struggle to do that. And we struggle to like get outside of ourselves, kind of like you said, that insecurity and doubt of like, I'm not enough, or we don't know enough things, or maybe our identity has told us we are a certain person or certain thing, and we just kind of stay stuck in that. So what would you say to somebody, because you're a business coach, too, and you're obviously focused on branding and things, but what would you say to people or anyone, I guess, who's listening, who's like, I'm struggling in that space today? Like, what would you offer them as kind of maybe some keys for them to like break out of that mold and move forward through faith?
My biggest thing is, like I said, understand that God is where it all comes from. He is the author and perfecter of our faith. That's where we need to go to. That's our first source. For me, I say pray before everything you do. Before you have that consultation, pray. Before you have that coaching call, pray. Before you get your day started, pray. Like, start it off with that, because you want the Holy Spirit to guide you through your day so that you know you're on point and you're doing things with God in mind first. That comes first. And I had to learn that for myself. Like, that comes first. And then from there, you infuse everything around that. You say, hey, what are my goals for today? God, can you walk with me in these goals? And that's what your day-to-day should look like. That would be the best advice that I would give anybody, is to make sure that the Holy Spirit is infused in everything you do in every part of your day. And say, God, if this is for me, open that door. If it's not, close it. Like, I may be struggling in my business right now and I absolutely need a new client. But if this client is not for me, I don't want it. And being okay with it.
Yeah. And trusting in the provision of God, right?
Yes.
Like you said, trusting that God will give you the provision in the time in which it is needed through the way that he is designed. I think that's so good and so hard. It's so hard to do that.
Oh,
really,
it's so hard.
Yeah. Especially when we're in this space of like, I'm a warrior. I'm super strong. I've got all these things I've done. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So it's so good. I think that's really important. And I think, do you spend time at the end of your day or in your week or something from a place of reflection and gratitude? Like, is that a part of your practice too, in terms of like looking back and seeing, the Lord's hand at work in your life?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Like I told many people, it's funny because I have my spots that I do everything. And for me, my reflection time just happens to be in the shower. And so I'm sitting and I'm thinking and I'm reflecting. That's where some of the best, me and the Holy Spirit has like the best connection in the shower.
That's what they say, so, like driving. Yeah.
So I'm just there and that's my time to like let everything go for the day and reflect and say, oh, I saw God show up in this moment. Oh, I didn't even think about when I was talking to this person, I said that. Like, I know that didn't come from me because I forgot I said it. It's things like that. When you go, and reflection is important because it helps you to see that thread, and that it just helps you to see that thread. That's why I love like reflection so much.
Yeah, that's so good. I agree. I'm in the same space too. There are days when we get to the end of the day and I just tell my husband, I'm like, today was a good day. Like, there was sunshine. We got these 3 things done, or it may be some big God thing, but I try to find a great degree of gratitude in the little bitty things that, seem to, those are the things I feel like that sustain me more some days than the highs, the big highs and the big lows. So yeah, just the daily, like I really like coffee. So, or if there's a really good drum line on some amazing worship song, you know what I mean? And I can turn it up or it doesn't even have to be worship song. It could be like Summer of 69 or like John Cougar Mellencamp or whatever. I don't really care. But if it's got a solid drum line, I'm like, that was a good day. That was a good day.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that's right. So what do you think now? So you're serving in your company or in your business. So what's kind of on the horizon for you and kind of products that you offer and ways that you're helping or anything that you want to share with the world?
Yeah, most definitely. So, of course, I offer brand development services, coaching services, and brand management services. But right now, I have this challenge that I drew up mainly for myself, but also it was to help as many businesses as I can. So I call it the 60 and 60 challenge. So it's helping 60 businesses in 60 days. And it's starting August 1st. And people can pre-register now. And I cut my package price tremendously. So it's only $525 to get a complete brand package delivered to you. All you have to do is fill out the questionnaire. And if you don't know all the answers to the questions, that's okay. We can work through that. But that's my next big thing on the horizon is my 60 and 60 challenge. And I am so excited for it.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a deployment.
I know, right? I know. I was like, this is going to be so hectic, but I'm so excited for it.
That's so cool. You'll have to come back and tell us how it worked. And if you got your 60 and 60, that's so good. Yes. I love that. And it's great. Yeah, it's great branding too. 60 and 60. You can carry that around. That's very cool. Well, I just love you, friend. I thank you so very much for coming on the show. So the final question I have for you is, and we talked about it a little bit, but I'll let you answer. So what is this podcast is about leadership and helping people be the best version of themselves. And I just thought there are so many things that you offer today that it really, in my mind, like just encapsulate the essence of leadership from my perspective, right? Like we talked about faith and we talked about strength and identity and those kind of things, and then just giving what you have to the world. So I think there's 100 things that you offered today that people could take away in terms of like, they might not be a business leader, or they might not, be doing that as an entrepreneur, but those lessons of faith, the lessons of reflection, self-care, those are all really I believe those underpinning elements of leadership that really make us have an impact and help people grow. But what for you is your biggest why? Like, why do you keep showing up every day, even when it hurts?
I do that because I know for me personally, people want to see the best versions of themselves and they want to know that they can win. And so for me, just seeing that light bulb go off in a business owner's eyes to like, oh my goodness, I can actually do this. For me, that's like the biggest thing ever. I'm like, I absolutely love this. And I always tell them, small, consistent steps leads to impressive results. Take your time. This is a process. You are going to fail, but how are you going to get up?
Yeah.
Are you going to get up and move forward? Let's do this. And so for me, that's why I do what I do, because in essence, God built in me this thing to just want to help people. And so I just love helping these businesses grow and succeed and get their clear message in and bringing the customers that they want to. It's just a fun process. I love it.
Oh, I love that. That's so good. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you stuck with it. Like, I'm so proud that you loved yourself enough to try, Yes. I am. Yeah. Because even when it was hard for you, you stuck with it and you were like, okay, deep down inside, there are these nuggets that the Lord has. It's just going to take me some excavation work to try to find them.
Yes.
So, which is messy. Oh, that's so good. Well, how can people find you? What's the best way for them to reach out and work with you if they want to connect with you?
The best way if you want to set a call, is to go on my website, questbusinessconsulting.net. That is the best way to reach me. But I am also on Instagram and Facebook at Quest Business Consulting.
Yay. Very good. Yes. And I love your videos. I'm super slightly jealous because I'm like, one day I'll do videos, but I haven't just got there yet. So super cool. Well, thank you, friend, for coming on the show. It's been such a blessing. Thank you. You'll have to come back and tell us about your 60 and 60 and and your faith journeys. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. Very cool. Thanks for listening to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. This podcast was brought to you by our amazing producers at Wildfire Creative Company. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please hop over to iTunes or Spotify, subscribe, rate it, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And make sure you come back. We'll talk more about the essence and elements of leadership on the first and third Thursday of every month. If you enjoyed today's show, you can head over to danitacummins.com/podcast and gain access to additional free resources. But make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest shows. Have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.